All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my stream. Apologies for starting a bit late. Let's get everything set up. How are you doing, everybody? Don't be shy. Say hi in the chat so that I know you are here as I'm getting this show ready to go. Just making a few final adjustments to make this even better. There we go. So today, let me actually get the lights on so I don't look like a gammon. There we go. Hello, everybody. So how is everybody doing? Let me get this started to... I think this might be a good position for that. So get some tea or coffee, maybe some extra water or stuff. Get your questions and imaginations ready, because this is going to be introduction into my literary universe, which I call Struggle for Balance. So that's what we'll be doing tonight. And quite a departure, if I say so myself, from the usual. Remember, if you are my sponsor, you should have a link to get into the stream here. So feel free to join me. Today is going to be very, should I say it? Today is going to be very relaxing in a way. So let's see how things work out. So, okay. So let us get started. So Struggle for Balance is my fictional sci-fi universe. It's in a distant future sci-fi. A lot of extra, I could say, I'm kind of also aiming for more of a military sci-fi feel, a little bit more of harder, should I say it, hard science, but not too much, because who knows where science is going to be in 10, 20 years, not alone 1000. So that's one of the limiting factors. And I have some interesting articles that go more, you could say, into the fantasy genre, but still, well, articles I'm researching for potential parts that could be considered in the more fantasy realm, but it's actually real thing, which was kind of surprising to me. So let's see. Where do we go from there? So I'll be starting with a time description of how time works, because that's quite a big thing in space and science. Then I'll be talking a little bit about Dark Forest, then my kind of potential rebuttal, at least in my sci-fi, what I call the City of Light. I'll talk about Caves of Civilization, then actually probably I'll get more into my universe with the State of Universe. We'll go over the species, the languages, some first contact things that are important to know, faster than light travel, shared culture, what Wayno is. Then I'll introduce some characters, and finally stories that I can probably reveal at this point that I'll be writing or I'm already writing. So at any time, please feel free to write a question in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them, especially in this podcast episode. So let's get into it. So first of all, time. The stories, for the most part, take over 1,000 or more Earth years in the future. The Earth years is very important here because there is something called standard universal time to synchronize across the known universe. Pretty much, I think, if I remember correctly, seconds are the same, but after a second, it uses different units of measurement. And another issue is also that you have time dilation due to the laws of physics. In gravity, well, time is going to flow differently than in rest of the space or outside of gravity wells. So at different planets have different time flows based on gravity and other factors. And as a result of this, in the universe, planets that are closer or closest to the standard universal time, in a regular time, or like as normal as it would be seen, so as kind of the same as possible, are settled above other planets. And that's primarily to keep everything in sync when it comes to diplomacy, communication, trade, all those things. Of course, planets where time is moving faster or where time goes faster are also used. They have their special uses, but they are often time used. You could say they are the doomsday planets. So that's if something bad is happening, that's where scientists or military leaders retreat, so that they can react faster to the threat that's emerging. And also, it's some of these are known resort planets. So if you are of higher means, you could say, or higher importance, if you need to take a break or longer break, but your position demands you to be fast quickly or return quickly, then you will go to the special resort planet so that you can take for you what would feel a longer break and then go back to normal world, while at the same time actually not that much time has passed. So those are one of the kind of key uses of those planets. So I want to talk here to begin with dark forestry, which was coined by Lu Xinxin, hopefully I pronounced it correctly, in his Remembrance of Earth Past series. And it's a possible solution to the Fermi paradox, which Fermi paradox asking why don't we see civilizations, spacefaring civilizations out there? And the simple thing is, any species that becomes visible gets destroyed by a more advanced species. Therefore, everybody is hiding and trying not to get discovered. And in my universe, some species hide themselves and live in dark forests as they have not developed faster than light technologies. And encounters with those species are extremely dangerous, primarily because of their absolutely warranted paranoia. Another thing to consider here is, even though you might be and that's why the dark forest can exist, is even though you might right now be the more advanced species, if you set out to the other one to destroy it or do whatever, it will take you hundreds of years, possibly thousands. And so before you get there, pretty much with the technology you set out, you probably is obsolete, and that species is probably more advanced, or it can advance. You don't know what is their technological rate of advancement. So you might be have the advantage now technologically or in development. But who knows, maybe in 100 years their rate of advancements is so fast that they will overtake you. So that's why, any of these threats need to be eliminated as fast as possible. So it's something to consider very much in our universe, actual outside of stories as well. My answer to that, is, or kind of the second category of civilization in my story is what I term right now the City of Light. Who knows how I'm going to name it later? Is the opposite of dark forest, and this pretty much describes species that have faster than light travel technologies, are able to communicate, trade, have cultural exchanges if they so choose to. And one of the big things also is that they have compatible living environments. So they are so opposite that they don't get in their way in competition for living environments. So trade, communication, diplomacy, cohabitation, and even limited warfare. And the codes here are important for limited warfare, because these species will not engage in all-out warfare for the same reason why we rarely engage in, war of annihilation here on Earth. It's primarily because of the shared humanity to a certain degree, and we are able to communicate, we are able to establish diplomacy and other things. So these things kind of permit us to go all outside, as compared to in the dark forest, where you don't know the other species. You have no, you could say, reasonable way to communicate, or at least not well enough, if at all. So there's this paranoia, it's completely unknown, and it's like some distant thing. So you have no, like, squashing ants or squashing bugs. So like feel no remorse really for that, because at the end it's either you or them. So the City of Light is kind of the opposite, where you have a lot of good things happening, pretty much how we have it here on Earth. So related to that are categories of civilization. Right now, I do not remember how these were categorized. This is primarily categorized by the use of energy. So you have type 0 civilization, which is pre-planetary, which means it can, like here's, small nuclear reactors and local grids. It just cannot utilize enough power on a full, like, planetary scale. And that's the type 1 civilization. Together with that, you have that there's also some sort of planetary unification or serious space travel possible. So that's a civilization that can utilize the full power or energy that their planet receives or produces. Then next is type 2, which is stellar. That's most civilization, or like in struggle for balance, are type 1 planetary, so you can utilize the planetary energy. Type 2 stellar are civilization that can utilize pretty much the entire, in our case, would be solar system energy. So pretty much all that's coming from sun and everything else that you can get your hands on the planets that can produce energy. But primarily, you can utilize the full of stars. So we have quite a. Let's see how many we have. How are we going to put this properly? Okay, do it more in species, but we have for sure 2. One of them is potentially a type 3 civilization galactic, and that's civilization that can utilize the energy in an entire galaxy. So that's why we have these categories. And there is massive differences between these types of civilizations, not just not just on the type of how much energy they can utilize, but also on, you could say, on development level and other aspects. So something to keep in mind once we get to species later on. So now to my universe. As I mentioned, it's 1,000 years in the future. There is, or actually over 1,000 years. There is right now the universe is in a state of peace after a long war called the Artilect War. It's kind of more, well, originally it started out as a, you could say, a revolution of Artilect, and Artilect is for, pretty much artificial beings, so robots, androids, synths, augmented people. All these, are considered Artilect, and of course, it started usually, yeah, we are superior, everything, therefore we should be ruling, with some of those who were power hungry, and it, as is usual, it does not, go well from that, and you could say increased intelligence does not make you a better ruler in general. There are just too many other things that are happening or of importance than just intelligence. So one of the things that happened during the wall was the establishment of what's called the wall, which are, let's say, as the name describes, a wall of sounds or of stations that inhibit faster than light travel past boundaries, and that's all over the, pretty much that borders the known universe, so nobody could get out. And that was primarily to be that, there can be no escape for the Artilect, or so that they can be eradicated completely. Though at one point it seems it would backfire, because just the war was very brutal. And as a result of the Artilect war, there's very limited AI, synths, or augmentation in many aspects. Also, with augmentation, a lot of, if you lose, for example, your arm, we have species that are masters of biology, so it's not a problem to grow it back. One more thing is that you could say, in the lifespan of the main characters, the wall is predicted to go down, because of course wall is not forever. It's a limited thing with these space stations, so it will start to fail in parts and eventually completely in due time. But also the technology has been used to limit, because it has been kind of also built to build internal walls partially during the war, so it limits of where you can go with hyperspace. So also, as a result of the war, a lot of advanced technologies were lost. If you have seen Battlestar Galactica, that's the same reason. So even though it's like over 1,000 years of future, some of the things are not as advanced as they would have been. And actually, you could say before the Artilect war, the society as a whole was more advanced technologically. So there has been quite as also strong, you could say, return to, even than it was, could say, before, to tradition, to you know, living and having things without technologies, to traditional craft, all that stuff. All species in the known universe are in an alliance, but as it usually is with a wartime alliances, once peace arrives and is along for long enough, it uses its lot of power and cohesion due to the peace. So that's where we are. This is the current map of the universe. He's still working on it. A lot of the names of the regions are missing. Here are also the 5 species, which I'll cover shortly. We have, you can see Sol in Sol Confederacy. That's where Earth is. So you can position yourself. And at the top there, let's see. At the top there would be the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So let us proceed to the species in the City of Light. There are more species, but they are either underdeveloped, technologically advanced enough, or they are in what's called the dark forest. And there are also a third type of species, which is, you could say, migratory species. They are in one of the stories, and similar to the dark forest, they are usually not a good encounter. So first things, we have the Ashonians. They are the oldest and most advanced species. Their unified body is called the Ashon Union. They are from Igigi as their homeworld. And you could say they are your classical, stereotypical gray alien. Of course, since they are so advanced, everything logic is primary for them. They are very much isolationist and secretive because they don't want to be bothered by other species who are just like, too stupid and underneath them and plus rowdy, and they're just distracting them from their research, and they would rather spend time in their labs and working on their technology than do any of that. They are very respected, but also since they are quite arrogant and looking down on the other species in most cases, they are not, you could say, beloved or liked, but they have strong respect because of their technology, their age, and also, as has been seen quite a lot, even though it has been quite brutal, especially in the Artolite War. For them, a war is just, you're pretty much volunteering yourself to become a experimental lab rat on their latest, technological advancements and other things that normally they, probably wouldn't necessarily test or couldn't test for various reasons. So if you declare war on them, they'll maybe even thank you that now they can actually test all those things that they have been developing and are eager to see what the result is going to be. So usually, they are not that much. They have a lot of doomsdays, or what we call the doomsday weapons, where they can destroy entire solar systems super easily. They don't usually resort to that. You have to quite push them to do that because they have what they would term more interesting technologies to enjoy. So let me just... Okay, so I have to check that later. So next we have Trial. Their unified body, or in this case, unified very much with an asterisk and quotation marks, is Trial Union. It's a union in name only. You could say it resembles more of a warring nations, or maybe Greek city-states would be a good comparison in this. They are a evolutionary branch of the Ashoni, because in the early days of the Ashoni colonization, one of the colonization ships got lost and landed on a planet that was not necessarily best for habitation, so they adapted, and that's how the Troll were born. So you can imagine this is like tens of thousands years back in history. Um, the one thing as a result of this was they have advanced psychic abilities, so feeling emotions, projecting to a limited degree emotions onto others as well. Uh, so they are also very common to be seen uh, in first contact missions, so that with their abilities they could be quite useful. Also, a little bit bioluminescent, so kind of so the color can change a little bit based on their emotions. They're also very well known for their arts and diplomacy. But despite that, you would say, oh, they are psychic, psychic and all that stuff, artsy things. You would think that they are the space hippies, and even though some of them are space hippies, but they're like they have artists and poets like, I need inspiration. I know I'll go into exile or crazy stuff like that. But despite all of that, they are not peaceful. Quite the opposite. They're very much warlike, and if it wasn't for the alliance keeping a significant military presence in the Union or Electoral Union to keep them from actually escalating their spats and grievances against each other, then there would be constant wars. Of course, it's constant war between each other until some other enemy threat appears. So that's there. Then we have the Yuk. So it's a collective ruled by Queen Mother, as from Nithnarkar. They are insectoid species. You could think of them as a merger of ants and bees. And they're large insectoid species. Don't think of small ants and bees. Like usually around 1.5 meter in height. If it comes to it, depending on how you also measure it. So that's that. The ruler is the Queen Mother from the Yad hive. So that's the ruling hive. They have a caste system, starting at the top from a queen caste, which rules the different hive. They have the worker caste, the warrior caste, and also relatively recently diplomatic caste, which is specifically adjusted. So you can see there are quite significant biological difference between them, but the diplomatic caste is specifically adjusted more closer to the queen caste, but primarily so that they can communicate well with other species. They are known, of course, for their biological spaceships and other things. There have been records of them, pretty much taking entire moons and having that as a hive and flying with that through the universe. Though recently there hasn't been no sightings. Last one was in the Artilect War when one of them was used as, you could say, a movable battle station. They're masters of biology, so as I mentioned, if you cut off your hand thanks to the technology they have provided to other species, you can easily grow it back, and other quite interesting miracle, including like living spaceships. They also have something called the link, which you can say is like a biological internet for them. So if they need information about something, they go into the link, find it out. It also can act as a shared consciousness, especially very dangerous in warfare, where then if a queen can then use a link to command millions upon millions in a very coordinated fight. So, and of course, since they share the consciousness, it's the fighting it's very difficult as an enemy to stand against, not just because of the mass that you will go against, but it's a mass that pretty much has this. It has eyes everywhere, it has hands everywhere, it has guns everywhere. So not something that you want to fight against. Then we have the Grimnar, who is they are a reptile species. They are mix between dinosaur and alligator, you could say. Here is one of the concept arts for them. But of course, they are much bigger than this. The main or the unifying political body is the Grimnar Empire that unified this species very early on. Think of, for example, if we as a humans were unified or have like one unified world government, say around the year 1600 at the latest. 1600. So that's kind of like the equivalent that the Grimnars had. So since then they have been unified for very long. They have, you could say, it's not elective but selective monarchy. So at the top, of course, is the emperor ruling from Grimdor, their homeworld, and that one is how this works. Is that when pretty much the life of the emperor is kind of closing in to its end, the current emperor selects I will not bore you with the exact term, but they select they appoint a person to select the next emperor, and that emperor for a while can also reach or that elected person can be, or selected person can then at one point even has the same access as the emperor, because that person needs to know everything about all the potential candidates and potentially prepare some tests. But at the point when the emperor died before the next one is appointed, if it comes to it, they could pretty much rule as well, or have the necessary rights, but they need to appoint an emperor. If it lasts too long, then of course, then that's not going too well. Pretty much, it's like in one day is when that entire process happens, or one, or actually not. It's a bit longer than that, because we have, of course, the ceremony for the death of the emperor, some time for mourning of the loss of the emperor, and then you have the appointment of a new emperor. So there's a couple of days there that at all it doesn't last more than 5 days. So yeah, that's their big thing is that they have a very strong adherence to their bloodlines, aka family houses. So which family house they are from. If we jump back here and look at the Grimnar Empire, you see in the center is the imperial domain that's under direct control of the emperor. That's where the homeworld is, and from there you can see an actually very specific pattern spreading out with the different regions. And then you have the 6 large houses that are kind of closest to the power in the empire that surround the imperial domain. And past that, you have houses that are kind of subsidiary to that large house that are also important in their own right to have their own large, say, sector or domain like that. So for Mihri, they are kind of got stuck here because they run very quickly against the Sol Confederacy, or specifically, their territory was actually bigger, but they gave that up so that Sols can have more space. Same thing happens with these two houses with Suzy and Zidu. But let's see. So that's the Grimnars. Honor and valor, and of course, then self improvements are core in their ideology. And they are like, they have very much warrior, say, nature embedded with them. So, but despite that, they despise war, because for them, it's about perfecting the art of war, and with martial arts, perfecting yourself and improving all that stuff. And they see the actual war, especially the modern war, being destructive and corrosive to all of their values. So they despise that, despite having the iconography and all that stuff. Really, at first look, you would say, they are going constantly to war, conquering everybody. Not the case. But duels are like that. They do occur occasionally, though that's again not something very usually something for the young and more hot-headed than for General Grimnars to have a duel. Now we are getting to souls. They are evolutionary advancements from humans to be more adapted to life in space. This happened during the Artelect War with the help from the Iaghoktol. As I mentioned, they are masters of biology, of nature in this case. So there was actually a biological weapon that was killing humans by the millions. So they reached out uh, to the Iaghoktol to help them out to evolve the species so that they are resistant against these biological weapons. So that's what happened. And let's say you can think of it as human 2.0, or however you want to classify that. Maybe sometime I'll write more of like a fun article to describe all the things that have been improved and changed. I will talk about one huge change with huge impact later on. Of course, the homeworld is Earth. We still have that. It's not a radioactive ball of newtons. Earth is doing quite well, though. Well, as I'll cover it later. The governing body is the Sol Confederacy. It is Confederacy as is defined by Confederacy. So it's a very loose, you could say, state, or at least there's very loose central government. Very little. It's just to maintain certain minimum standards between the different colonies of Earth, you could say. At least that's how could say the Earthlings would like to hear that. So you can already see that there's some conflict between the United Earth and the colonies that were, especially the newest one, or the more that are further away from the power centers of United Earth. And United Earth is trying to dominate and centralize power, with, of course, it as the core. Because we are the freaking homeworld. This is where you come from, so you're going to listen to us and all that stuff. But still, the territories, especially the further you go from Earth, the less they kind of are adhering to, of course, in Earth, or it's a confederacy, so very loose. There is, of course, the Senate. There is the president, but beyond that, it's mostly for diplomatic. The Confederacy itself doesn't have much of a army to speak of. For example, it mostly depends on local system defense forces to manage that, and it's very weak. And that's also what allows Earth to kind of take the more dominant role. Of course, not not always, especially the further they get out. Big importance to notice here is a Terran minority. They call themselves Terran. Hello there. Guess that would be Alim going through the Meteor.js community account. So Terran community, it's could say the original humans who went beyond the solar system, the original colonizers and spacefarers. And originally they called themselves souls, but because what actually happened during the Artelect War was they became the template or like the base from which the new species was developed, because you have couple of 100 years or almost over 500 600 years of adapting to live in space. So they started with that, and then due to, I want to say, miscommunication, but mistrust between that, of course, there was hesitancy of taking, could say, the upgrade, as some would call it. Hello there. Not much, just explaining my universe. So if you have any question, feel free. This is non-technical technical podcast, so just explaining what I work on in my free time and trying to relax a little bit. So there has been pretty much a bad accident which led that the what now is Terrans, back then was souls, were hunted by the Navy, and it was a genocide. So what remained, they then switched to use the name Terran, just to make things more confusing. And they are kind of space nomads. They don't have any homeworld by themselves. They have kind of gather in fleets that travel together and from system to system and make living in space. When it comes to best astronaut, welcome back, Alim. When it comes to astronauts, they are probably the best that you want to get when it comes to managing your spaceships and all of that stuff. So that leaves us with all these species, what the heck about languages and communication? There is something called the Universal Standard, which is a language that is made specifically to ease of understanding, especially in the case of humans. It's very similar to a Lojban in many cases. At least that's what I'm basing it on right now. The standard is a bit more beyond, but certain things like numeral are what you have in the constructed language of Lojban. There's also universal translator, because most people, or everybody, has nanites in their bodies, so universal translation can and is happening constantly. So it allows for instantaneous communication between species. If you think that's a bit far-fetched, just look at what ChatGPT can do today with the translations. So that's working fine. It has a bit of trouble when it comes to Iatoctol and Troel, because a lot of their communication is also nonverbal. So that's where it has a little bit of, it's struggling, especially outside, you could say, of the formal environments. But obviously, each species maintain their own languages and writing systems, because that's how they normally communicate. But so the universal standard is primarily used to communicate on the alliance level and for diplomacy and trade and all the other basics. As I said beginning, if you have any questions or want me to go back and explain more, feel free to comment in the chat. I will also be posting eventually a link for people to join me here as well. I'll be opening it. If you are my sponsor, you already have the link in your email, so you can join me already. Let's go on a little bit more. So we have species first contact. I just kind of want to quickly cover because I think that's a very curious things. There's species communication protocols that are the de facto primary directive in many aspects. It includes the first contact protocols, which are very similar again with the primary directive from Star Trek. Leave underdeveloped species alone is the main thing. There are specific exceptions, so it's not as absolute as the primary directive. Then we have, of course, when it comes to first contact, we have the first contact groups are carefully selected of leading experts in their field and people who have the top license in this, because you have licensing for first contact, and of course starting from lowest license all the way up to the different levels of highest. And if you have the highest levels of license, then you have potential to be selected for these first contact groups, which get selected if there is if there's contact. So quick question here. So you're working on a world building, right? So yes, this is world building. I am building that up in Literary Universe, which pretty much this universe is what kind of led me to build the website, or at least the initial idea for it. I'll post a link to that in the chat, so you can go visit there. Most of it you will find in the encyclopedia, and I still have a lot of stuff to copy over from my previous path, so it's slow going, but it's getting there. Back to languages. Question from Alan: would you expect languages to drift towards common idioms, words, and phrases over time? Yes. There is some common drift. It's not necessary between the species that you see. It's actually inside the species, because even at the end of the day, with all the travel and everything, there isn't such a strong cultural integration between the species that it would drift towards, like, say, common universal language. That one is like really more constructed and difficult in that part, but you would see some common things, some common insults would emerge, especially related to space themes. So for example, what a black hole, and similar things you will see emerge, and it would mostly emerge also on a planetary scale, and more local scale, then again more wider scale. In the end, the travel between stars is, even though accessible to everybody most of the times, you don't really need to travel outside of your system unless you do it for work or for other reasons. Of course, the Terrans being the biggest exception to that rule. Okay. Back to the licenses. So also when you're going out, if you're like on a spaceship, at least one high-ranking officer has to have a low-level license for first contract. So usually pretty much all the captains have those licenses, and their first officers, and usually a couple of others. It helps in their career advancement to have that, because then if something happens, you are allowed to have, you could say, bigger degree of autonomy. Also, the ship's computers have a lot of build restrictions when a first contact happens. So if you have those licenses, you are allowed to have certain overrides. So that plays a role. And of course, any exploration or all exploration ships need to have all personnel to have at least low-level license, and top officers need to have a high-level license, if not, well, not necessarily the complete top license, for which would be for the first contact groups, which is like really a few people in a species that have that. But you would have most of them have very high level in that. So finally, Alim says, yes, like Latin was the universal Roman language, but vernacular languages like Italian, Spanish, and French were what was used by local tribes. Yes, exactly. That's the case. You're more likely to see development of local planetary dialects. So one of the reasons, for example, could be because of the atmosphere. Even though you can find it can sometimes create some strange sounds that so that you have to kind of change how you pronounce things to convey that message properly, and or it allows for other adjustments in the language. That's more of the extreme, or in general because of you are not constantly inundated with oversight and influence from the center. Even though that is still there, it's still there's still also local culture is also very strong. So it's not necessarily like today where you could say we have almost a planetary culture with certain things. It's more really regional in that way, and like slowly makes it up. So if say a celebrity, to make it first, of course you make it on a planetary level. If even that would be like the top stars that are known all over the world today, and then you would probably like make it to your, you could say, solar system or the region, administrative region that you are from, and eventually you made it to the I could say species scale. Beyond that, very few celebrities, and even then it's very rare for celebrities, you could say in this case, to break out of that, just because there's so many different tastes and focus on the local. Not to mention, it's not like you can constantly jump on a spaceship and go and tour the universe. It's not that's very much very difficult. So, question from Alim, another one: how much autonomy do the ships have, assuming tech is advanced enough that the faster than light FSD is a reality? Does level of trust in autonomous tech count here? So you came a bit late, Alim, so I'm going to backtrace to the state of the universe here and repeat this. So this is about, it's more than 1,000 years in the future, but the universe is currently experiencing peacetime after a long artilect war, and by I mean long, a century-long war. And so there has been full self-driving. So full self-driving not happening because of the artilect war, which has a war of kind of rebellion of artificial intelligence and other augmented people. So that's there has been a lot of downgrade in the technology and a lot of these things. So you won't drive necessarily like you won't just like, okay, take me from this planet to this to the next planet. There's a lot of full self-driving in that way, but all the pilots and everything need to be able to do it by hand. So there is a lot of autopilots going on, but for exploration ships, for example, that is not happening because of how complicated and difficult exploration is outside of the explored space. So that wouldn't be the case there. There is still quite a distrust in a lot of the, not necessarily the automotive stack, but more towards the artificial intelligence. There's actually a list of banned technologies that if you possess or especially if you try to develop, they pretty much get automatically death penalty, no questions asked. So there is still a lot of big mistrust there. So a little bit of a Dune backstory, yes. It's just, with the Artelect War, it's the classical that somebody comes and say, oh, we can compute faster, than everybody, so we should be in power, and we should, lead to better futures. Of course, power and politics does not work that way. So obviously they suffered political loss, which led to resentment, and there was the feeling of entitlement. So eventually that led to a revolution. The Ashonians were obviously very not displeased, but unmoved by the argument that you can count faster, because with them, some of the artificial intelligence, when it came to counting and doing logical stuff and other things, some of the Ashonians, unaugmented Ashonians, were much faster than some of the general artificial intelligence in other species. So that really didn't really work with them, and so they had a really big fight with the Artelect, and entire solar systems destroyed there. So another comment here: every evening after work, I'm creating some worlds too. I have some beta testers for a study framework that I will release here in Brazil about learning futurism, emerging technologies through stories with world building. I would love to collaborate with you on something. Absolutely, reach out. Reach out to me here, either this is via Twitch. So I'm on Twitch. You can reach out to me, or on Literary Universe, or hello@jandvorag.me. I'll be interested to hear what you are working on, and we are also working on quite a few big things for Literary Universe coming this year, so might be of interest to you as well. So let's see. So that was the first connect. So, but also kind of to the autonomy of the crew as well when it comes to the exploration and going out. Once you are outside of the known space and exploring, once the war is over, you have a lot of autonomy, a lot of decision making, because you are on your own there. So there isn't necessarily any oversight. There is, of course, big scrutiny of everything that you have done once you come back, but you have quite a big autonomy to do a lot of things out there. But again, that's why you have the licenses, or for the first contact, so that you know what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and how to do things, how to manage things. That's also why for exploration ships, everybody has to have that, so that there is not something unwanted happening. As space has many dangers, and you want to limit that as much as possible, because it's not just limiting dangers to the species or species that you are potentially contacting for the first time, but to yourself as as the ship and the crew. That's a big part of especially of the higher licenses, to make sure that that's taken into account. But you're potentially endangering the entire known universe if, for example, you and your ship gets captured and all the information you have gets extracted. So there's a lot of things happening. So, for example, with exploration ships, the computers do not really include that much information on the civilization they are coming from, primarily because you want to prevent if in case if there's a capture by hostile species, to get information about that from the computers or from the crew. So there's a lot of things that go into it. So faster than light travel, and I think I'm going to jump back to give a reminder from, especially for Alim, how I started here. I started here talking about something called the dark forest, which is a term coined, or at least not sure if it's coined, but it was popularized by Chinese writer Lu Xinxin in his Remembrance of Earth's Past series. It's a possible solution to the Fermi paradox, and it's pretty much the main thing is that if there's like any species that's visible, then it will get destroyed by a more advanced species. That's why everybody is hiding. So that's why we don't see any, spacefaring civilizations out there, or big pretty much anybody out there with our observations, because everybody's hiding. Because if you are not hiding, if you are visible, then somebody else is going to come and kill you. And that's a lot of reasons for that. And in my universe, there are species that live in the dark forest that are hiding. Encounters with these species are extremely dangerous because they are, for good reasons, paranoid and pretty much try to exterminate you. But the species that I mentioned, they live in what's called the City of Light, and that's because they have faster than light technology and are able to initiate communication, diplomacy, and everything else that comes with those things. And also they either have completely separate living conditions, so they don't bother each other in that aspect, or they have similar enough so that they can, for example, meet and shake hands, or hand and tentacle, or whatever that one is. So that takes us then to faster than light travel, and there are two types of traveling faster than light. First, we have hyperspace. That's for long distance. You pretty much jump into, you tear a hole in reality and jump into subdimension, and you can travel very fast for long distances. And you can accelerate and deaccelerate in there. For majority, given how navigation is difficult in this hyperspace, there are pre-made travel paths, and you could say navigation buoys that you can kind of target on, and that's where you can exit. Without them, then it's pretty difficult, and you might end up in a very bad situation. But thankfully, because spaces are wide, it's more likely that you'll just jump into an open space in the middle of nowhere. Second one is warp technology. That's for short distance. It's not as fast as hyperspace, significantly slower, in fact, and that's mostly used for in-system travel. So you don't have, when you jump out of hyperspace at the edge of a system, so that you don't have to then, to spend a month or a year before you get into the planet in the inner core. But that way you have it you know, you get when you travel, you jump on your ship, then you with warp, you go outside of the system. There you jump to hyperspace, or you transfer to a bigger ship, jump to hyperspace, go to the target system where you jump out, and then you with warp go to the local planet or your destination in general. I have an article that I should probably link later. I'll kind of get into that later. So that way, that's gonna travel similar with communication. It works similar fashion with hyperspace. You have, I could say, network, or like you have you could say the galactic internet. So that's our antennas that are pretty much placed into hyperspace. So through that, you can then communicate much faster on long distances. And for like limited things like diplomacy, or diplomatic messages or other critical messages, you can do near instantaneous communication. There is going to be a lag just because of the distances and transferring the data. Also, depending on your on time dilation of your local place. So instantaneous is usually not happening. It's either happening on shorter distances in a system, or again, it's the technology to do that not available for everybody. Mostly, top people and only super important stuff, because also takes a lot of energy. So kind of already hinted at it. Some shared culture that's kind of common along a lot of the species is the culture of self-sustainability, and that ranging, from self-sustainable solar systems down to planets, city levels, and especially if you are of the great individual dwellings. The main thing for that is, if something goes horribly wrong, you want to be secured in your basics. If something goes horribly wrong, help could be years away. So you want to have, these self-contained systems that, if something happens, they can take care of themselves and wait for help. Especially after the Arctic War, there has been a strong rise of traditionalism and wariness of advanced and especially potentially dangerous technologies. So it's for example, in the Sol Confederacy, in a region that was primarily settled by, say, Japanese diaspora. It won't be out of the place to see kimonos or other traditional garnets. Of course, with evolution they have changed, but you will actually see them more often in those places than you would see them in today's Japan. So that's how kind of say this traditionalism is strong in those aspects. Even here, one of the concepts I have here, riding some bird-like creature in a desert, that's like another thing. Part of traditional is keeping the traditional crafts intact and keeping the professionals employed and working, because yes, you can automate a lot of the stuff, but you don't want to lose the skills that allowed for the automation. So that's part of the self-sustainability, and there is a strong culture of manual crafts, or not necessarily like even manual, but crafts things and doing things locally. So of course there are similar like we have today, people are going to different local establishment and sampling and seeing how things they are doing. So because people are very much, or I would say more aware, especially because of how horrible the Arctic War was, about losing technology losing knowledge. So that's there, and also it's in a way it strengthens the local communities as well. There is no dangerous technological advancements, and there's an asterisk for two things. First of all, there, as I mentioned before, there's a list of banned technologies. So that's artificial intelligence, for example, that if you are caught developing, they'll pretty much in most cases it's a death sentence. And that's one thing. So forbidden technologies, especially when it comes to weaponry, they still do exist, but they are can I say locked away for emergencies for the most part. There is one also exception for the dangerous technological advancement or research. Those are doomsday planets or a research doomsday planet. That's usually where time flows faster. And for example, if it's like for a biological research, for dangerous pathogens and all that stuff, not just are they secret and hidden, and they have specific parameters that it's also not as easy to get to or get away from. They usually have quite strong defensive military, and if something goes wrong, that military can also push a button and the planet gets wiped out, or at least the facility itself. So if something goes wrong, you just destroy the entire thing. And for example, as I mentioned, the dangerous pathogens, you as a researcher, if you won't go there, you go there and you will be there probably for decades. You won't be able to leave. And that's, in case something has a longer period before it manifests, and also to ensure that you are not going to accidentally contaminate both the research but also the rest of the civilization as well. So it can be even so radical as that, for example, the research to find a cure and or finish the research can last just 1 year, and then you are done, and then you are stuck at least 9 more years on the planet, enjoying an extended vacation in a way. Yes, that's lots of disincentive for the individual, but of course, with a lot of the technologies that could be potentially dangerous, there's also a lot of other benefits as well. And sometimes, especially the people researching them, don't see the dangers, because for them, I'm just solving a mathematical equations. So that's why if it's identified as potential like this, then you get usually, if you want to continue on that, you get shoved into one of those facilities. Ashonians have a big problem with this, just by their nature of advancement, curiosity, and all that stuff. So they have a strong enforcement arm that pretty much just goes against crazy rogue researchers and trying to keep everything alive to prevent the universe from collapsing on itself from some of their research. So a last thing that I kind of want to cover, I think, before I move on to the big next section, we'll take a break there as well afterwards, is Venu. And that's one thing that I mentioned, the upgrade to humans. That was made a major one that changed, had a tremendous impact. And that's called Venu Link. And it's a pair bonding link that for Yag-Huktul, Grimnars, and Souls. It was created by the Yag-Huktul, and it's a pair bonding for life. So once you get bonded with somebody, pretty much that's it. You are bonded with that person for life. And I have an entire article on that specifically. So if you want, I can then post the link Actually, let me open up a new window and link to it. So great. And so that's a big change. So it's also not that you can, just, oh, I'm just going to date this person and then we are going to eventually. It's not nothing simple like that. And it's a very sophisticated system that takes into account uh, many things for you to kind of become bond. Of course, starting with the basic biological compatibility, and it can do a lot of stuff. It's very close to, you could say, in many aspects, to what we would call magic. That's just how the Yakoktl technology is advanced, or biological technology in this is advanced. And it also takes on a little bit of their link as well. So there's a certain overlap in that aspect. So let me get the link for. Yikes! We've got an error here. I'm going to set up the link, but looks like we have a bug on Liter Universe for some reason. It's one of those bugs that's next to impossible to catch up until you've run into them in production. So I'll have to fix that later. Is there power considerations in pairings? Can you expand on what you mean by power, Alim, on that? Because that can take many shapes and forms. If you mean by like status in society, then I'll just wait quickly for you to maybe expand that. Or actually, what I'm going to do, because the next, okay, so status in society. It's not directly, to be honest in that, but it takes into account, well, first of all, you have to take into account who are you going to most likely meet. If you have certain status in society, you're going to meet people of similar status. So indirectly, that is where, because it can only keep, or you can only pair bond you with somebody who you meet and have consistent contact with, so it can run all the necessary things. Then says like wealth, like keeping wealth and position. Again, not directly. That primarily gets understand that with Grimnars, that's a big consideration. But there is one thing that the binary link can also figure out, or which is specifically the family structure and family, you could say, general environment. It cannot go into crazy details, but for certain things like that, there would be on the other partner requirements that they can work comfortably in that family structure and environment. So that plays a role, and that indirectly, you could say, or even directly, filters potential partners for that. And those are usually partners who have similar circumstances or station as you have. There is Nothing like, even though the Grunar Empire is a monarchy and the houses play a significant role, it has advanced past the need that you need to make like political marriages or strategic marriages. It's way uh, past that time period. But there are other consideration which the Venulink takes into account. So it was actually more welcomed uh, by the Grimnar than you would expect. This addition to their lives, but primarily because then a lot of the vetting of potential mates and partners, they no longer have to do that because the Venolink takes care of that for them. So that's that. And next are characters. I'm going to take a quick break here. So I think everybody should take. It's been almost hour and a half since we started. And what I'm going to do is I am going to then run through the character. We have here characters or the main characters that I want to mention. Then some of the stories that I'm working on, and after that we'll have discussion. So once we get to that, I will be sharing links for everybody to join me. So I'm going to take about 5 minute break. So everybody also should take 5 minute break, stretch your legs, get some water or tea, and I will meet you here in about 5 minutes. All right. Here we go. Okay, I have to go, sadly, so see you tomorrow. Let's see. Wait a little bit for everybody to come back. Say hi in the chat if you are back and listening, so I know I can start moving on. Hello, hello. Hope you got some tea or water. So let's wait a little bit longer. In the meantime, as you also type in, please like this video, especially on YouTube. It very much helps. And let's see what we have here. Just a few more, a minute or two, and then I'll start moving again. So he is my dinner for today. Preparing for an annoying medical exam tomorrow, so I'm not allowed to eat today, or pretty much since this morning till tomorrow the exam is over. So that's going to be unpleasant, but it needs to be done just to have peace of mind. All right, I'm going to wait about half a minute before I start going. So if you are back, please let me know in the chat. I'll start going earlier. In the meantime, I am going to start my local development machine to figure out what we have the issue in the encyclopedia. I'm baffled because I have not touched it recently, so it's one of those mysteries in software, unless something breaks. Let's start this. Okay. So, seconds, and then I'll be going again. For some reason, I got itchy nose today. It's ready. All right, off to characters we go. So first of all, let's start with our main characters. We have Edwin Trafe. Here's with some concept art. Very, very early concept art. He is a soul with a Terran heritage. He is a son of a diplomat. He mostly, especially his younger years, he grew up on Nitnarkar, and then his advanced education was on Grimdom, which is the homeworld of the Grimnar Empire. Nitnarkar is for the insectoid species, if you remember. So he went to the prestigious Imperial Academy in Grimdom. And after the story, or during the story Nulidridrom incident, which I'll talk more about later, he got recruited into the Grimnar Imperial Guard, which was a first for a soul. And he served with a distinction and reached a high rank before retiring. So this one, Yatsumi Miu, or just Miu, she's Yakokto, officially of the diplomatic caste, but in the first main book, pretty much from the very beginning, we learn that she is actually a leaf bloom, which is a special variant of the queen casts, which has many, which is pretty much a myth. She's pretty much a mythical being at that point. So yeah, she had basic education with Advin and the Mihri twins, which I'll talk about next. And she serves in the diplomatic service and then serving the Queen Mother. So we're very high up in the hierarchy. So we have the first of the Mihri twins, Mihri Lalu. Pavo is just a number, and this you will see this a lot with Grimnar names that they have. In this case, it's a Grimnar, not Grimnar, Lojbanik number. So you will see with Grimnars a lot that they have a lot of numbers. So like Lalu the 4th, the 5th, the 7th, or in this case it would be I think the 14th or something like that, or the 13th. I have to double check on that. So as the name suggests, she is Grimnar of House Mihri, and also have basic education with Advin and Mew. They were like, these four were in the same class together with her brother. And she is a bit of a loose cannon, you could say. And she eventually joins the Grimnar Secret Service and intelligence. So she provides everybody later on with important information, or can get them into locations they probably wouldn't be able to get on their own. And then we have Miri Selyu. So as we see, he is Lahalu's brother, also of House Mihri, as the name suggests, and he's in line of succession as the house head. Again, basic education with Advin and Mew. That's kind of where their friendship forms. Very, I would say not very, extremely rare for this interspecies friendship, just because of they are not usually that close together, so for this to happen. And one of the things is that both he and Advin are, say, kind of a dreamers, and they promise to go together, explore beyond the wall when the time comes. So they then focus in their different, let's say, different trajectories to fulfill that promise, and we shall see in the story if it comes to pass or not. So Selyu sells in the Grimnar Navy and later in the House Guard. We shall still see if he makes it into the Imperial Guard or not. But given his position, and his promise with Advin, it's not something that that he is kind of looking forward to. And Advin kind of got roped into that more as an accident than anything else. The Imperial Guard is like the top of the top, or elite of the elite, and not everybody gets to it. Even as somebody as important as Selyu, who is, in line of succession of the, one of the top 6 houses. Further on here we have kind of sketch of Advin's father. Also tradition here to name all the first born boys the same name as their fathers, at least with Advin as the main character is the 4th generation. So with his dad's is the 3rd generation. His mother is Jessa Skyfe. That's her name. And then Advin has 2 younger sisters, Narisia and Eleanor. So we'll actually see them both in the first novel as I get there. So another, let's say, family that I would like to mention, or in this case 2 characters, is Stefan Heidenreich, who serves in the United Defense Forces as an officer there. primarily like a spaceship engineer. He is also of Terran heritage and was, could say, a roommate or not necessarily a bunkmate, but roommate with Advin when Advin was in an exchange program with the United Earth Defense Forces. And Stefan has adopted a daughter called Isara. She is also of Terran heritage, and she is, well, hers, you could say here, her at least even at the young age, famous part is that she has been selected for a Ashonian school, which Ashonian Institute for the Gifted. Oh, actually, I have that two more here. So Ashonian Institute for Prodigies. So she got access into that, and that's a special Ashonian institute or university for, as it said, for prodigies. So prodigies from other species. So they all take extremely gifted children and teach them. So those children, in a way, are going to be, could say, the future leaders of, or scientific leaders in their respective species. Or maybe if they are like extremely good, they might even get allowed to be in the Ashonian Union and help there. So that has not happened at the beginning of the story, because also at the beginning of the story, that institute is very young, so it's still kind of figuring out how to work everything out. Then from the trial, we have the Anheriebri family from the planet of the same name, and we have Sarhedran, who is a hero of the Artilect War. He was young, and he pretty much killed one of the main instigators of the Artilect War, so he became a hero. So if it was like a fantasy, he pretty much slayed the Demon King, you could say. So in that aspect, he is a hero. And then his sister, younger sister, Nali, she is a medic and eventually becomes a doctor during the Artilect War. So she has kind of the opposite role and also temperament. Sarhedran is, let's just say, very peculiar character. It has very, very strange notions of balance, especially during the peace times. So, but when it comes to the Artilect, he is, he was like also very much criticized during the Artilect War that his tactics led to a lot of deaths and that, but that's wasn't really that big of a deal, because then million deaths was something that let's just say wasn't unusual. It was big bloodletting, and pretty much the civilization almost collapsed just because of how many sentients died. And kind of already showcase a little bit, we have what some might call him Professor Agir. Is an Ashonian. He taught math to Advin and the others as well. He was their science teacher. He is on the Council of Elders in the Ashonian Union, and he founded the Ashonian Institute of Prodigies just because of how interactions with Advin and the others. And he is one of the Isara's teachers. So a lot of fun there. And that's just not everybody. There's a lot of other characters that turn out, especially later on. Here are some of them. As you see, it's mostly here concept arts for human characters or soul characters. Problem with the other species is that since we don't have any original art for them yet, for the AI which I'm using to train these um, original concept arts doesn't have anything to base it on. So try as I might, it just will not generate the aliens the way I want. So, or it's something uh, similar to what's maybe currently popular or that already existed, and it just doesn't work, sadly. So when it comes to stories that I have planned to write or I'm in some sort state of writing, one thing that I'm started writing, it's nowhere finished yet or published, is called Inferno and Healer, which talks about the Anheriabri siblings during the Artilect War. So we get a glimpse of Artilect War and the total mayhem it was. But the main story is after the Artilect War. It starts with Leaf Bloom. You can read you can read the prologue and the first chapter, which I have to probably rewrite. I still want to improve some things. Following that is the Leaf Bloom that pretty much follows the four main characters that I mentioned, their childhood. And then we go into, let's say, what would be their university years on primarily Advin and the Mary twins on Grimdom. Mew sadly has to stay at the Yadhoktul capital. So we kind of follow primarily Advin through his university years and dealing with the Grimnar culture, and eventually the incident of Nalidri Drum, which you can, I think, read in the prologue to get an idea what that is going to be about. Then after that, we have some time skip. I'm not sure how much I'm going to describe that period, but we have eventually with the 8th Fleet, where Advin is on exchange with the 8th Fleet, and they explore kind of the edges of towards the wall that there's a big nebula, so it's not, or nebula system to be more, it's a nursery of stars there, so not very well explored or habited. So they explore that and run into some troubles. Following that, the state, we see Advent after he is retired, and he gets mixed into some unpleasant business. So we explore the dark side of United Earth and the band's technologies and what that means. And let's just say Advent doesn't escape from that, or even at the beginning, he is already not in a good state of that, and it doesn't get better. And then finally, we have Exiles. That's the true beginning, I would say, of the story. Pretty much the previous ones you could consider as prequels, and but it's not really, because in Exiles, everything that has been building up gets set into motion, and things start. The events get put into motion. Things start happening in the universe, because the previous things, usually they were, from the grand scheme of things, maybe with the exception with the 8th Fleet, but even then, given how it got resolved, insignificant events. What happens in Exiles starts really changes things, and the main plot point is that Advent is planning to do something about with what he experienced with the Eighth Fleet and in the State novels or stories, and he has a plan to do something about it. But he suddenly gets hands on another forbidden technology, or well, not say forbidden technology, but it's part of it. But it's a massive ship, probably one of the biggest in the universe. That's originates from the Artilect War. Originally was meant as a escape, or like a kind of like a seed to send some, say, from all species away in case the Artilect War would have been lost. So, but it has been remade into pretty much a battleship, and so he gets his hands on that, and suddenly is in a position where he needs to move his plans that were like supposed to happen in decades. He's supposed to start. He guys faced with he has to start now or be killed. So um, things get complicated very quickly, and pretty much everybody around him and that supports him becomes becomes exiled from their home species, or say political units. So, yay, we've reached the question and answer stage. So I'm going to do something unprecedented, or not unprecedented, but rare. I've posted a link on YouTube and Twitch to StreamYards, which is where I stream this from. So you can join me in the studio if you want to, or you can type questions in the chat, and I should hopefully see them and should be able to answer them. I'm also going to, yes, just here quickly display the link to the universe. I still very early on, but I plan to write more, post more there, and in general be more active. So there is still a lot of, it's a massive universe, thousands of years of history, or actually more than that. I could go for another hour exploring the history, all that stuff, but right now I'm in the middle of kind of revisiting everything, and getting things more kind of ready so I can start writing more actively and develop things up. So that's that. Let's see. Set. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for questions or for people to join me in the studio, if you want to talk with me directly, and we can also go into other topics, not just this. If you would be so kind and like the video, or on Twitter like the post, maybe reshare, and please subscribe to my channel so I can unlock more options here and get notified about all the cool stuff that I will be doing in the future. Also, especially from the tech sector, if you are here, please, if you like what you're doing, please consider sponsoring me on GitHub. Let me put the link to that as well. So that way I can focus more on not on open source, but also hopefully doing this as well. So I'll give it another 4 or so minutes for questions and or somebody joining me. If I don't get anything, then I will end the stream here, which is fine. Let me actually check what we have going on in the future as I'm preparing to end the stream. So let's see, any questions, or do you want to join me? There's a link in the chat on YouTube and Twitch, so you can join me here in the studio and talk to me directly without needing to write comments or questions. And I'll be waiting about 3 more minutes so that you can decide what you want to do, or write me so I can answer that. Let's see. And I'm going to slowly go over the different topics, or maybe actually, yes, it's kind of the content, so that what was covered. So you can, if you missed something, feel free to write in the chat that you want me to go back to something specific. It's also kind of a high-level overview. Potentially each of these could be a stream in themselves, like for example Dark Forest and the City of Light. That could be something that could be discussed in general and in terms of relationship to the universe for hours to come. Once more time, just finishing the stream up. So if you have question, want me to go back to something, please post to the chat, or you can join me here in the studio. I have posted a link to StreamYards to come here in the chats on Twitch and YouTube. So consider that as an option as well. And I'll be up for 1 more minute. So let's switch to this. So kind of winding things down, unless somebody joins quickly or have a question. Next Monday, I'll be continuing with Meteor 3.0 beta. I'll try to focus more on upgrading my personal website and building up with community packages website. A week after that, on February 12th, I'll be talking about the Great House. This will be part 3 as we go through things. The week after that, February 19th, on Monday, I'll be doing a Meteor 3 status update, looking at things, updating, playing with it. As you can guess, it's a theme here. I have usually a Meteor or technical stream, followed by a non-technical stream. So after that week, I haven't decided it fully. Sadly, Alim left, but I was talking with him that we might do a stream together in regards to when it comes to accelerationism or technical accelerationism, which also comes in neatly into this topic as well. Because if your species is in danger, technical or technological accelerationism is what you want, so you can grow or build technologies to overcome the threat. And then after that, the last Monday in February, we'll be back to Meteor 3. Hopefully we have beta 1 or 2 at that time as well. And with that, I'm not seeing any questions or comments coming in, or anybody joining. unless I have a bug on my side, in which case I do apologize. So that leaves us to go to the last slide. So thank you very much for your attention. You can find more about the universe at Literary Universe at this address. It appears there is a small bug in the library, or maybe just my local stuff. So I'll be checking this right now and providing a fix if that is something outside of my own machine. And with that, again, thank you very much for your attention. Please like, share, or primarily like. And if you like what I'm doing, please consider going to my GitHub sponsors and buying me a coffee or tea, which I would prefer. So cheers, everybody. Have a great week. Hopefully in the city of light and not in the dark forest. And with that, again, thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.